If I show you a photo of firefighters blasting black children with high-pressure water hoses, most of you are going to know exactly where it was taken. Birmingham, right? The civil rights movement. That photograph became one of the most defining images of this country. So here's my question. How do we go from that to firefighters becoming one of the most trusted professions in the United States? Because that's one hell of a rebrand. So I started thinking about that after hearing about these two stories. In one, a fire chief is accused of yelling racial slurs and shooting up a black family gathering. In another, a firefighter got fired after calling black people dumb on an emergency radio channel. And my immediate thought was, of course. Because one thing racists have never been accused of is being burdened by intelligence. One looked at a black family gathering and decided to behave like a fucking cartoon character. And the other got on a public emergency radio and started broadcasting slurs. Dumb. But of course, because it's just two grown white men letting people know who they are. And if there's one thing racists remain committed to, it's embarrassing themselves. The decades change, the technology changes. The uniforms, the job titles, they all change. And somehow, the village idiot keeps finding a way to identify himself. It's almost impressive. Not the racism, the consistency. Which of course got me thinking about firefighters. Because I think we can all admit they have one of the best reputations in this country. Think about it. If I say politician, people groan. If I say bank, people groan. Insurance company, landlord, pharmaceutical company. People have opinions, right? But firefighters, though. Most people picture a hero. You know, the person carrying somebody out of a burning building. The person showing up on the worst day of your life. And to be fair, firefighters earn that reputation every single day. But Black Americans have a different history with fire departments than the one that most people learn. For decades, many departments just didn't want Black firefighters. Then they allowed Black firefighters in, but they segregated them. Separate stations, separate bunk rooms, separate dining areas. You know? America would trust a Black firefighter to run into a building, but not to sleep in the same firehouse. Make that make sense. And while we're talking about history, let's not pretend Black Americans only encountered firefighters during emergencies. Some of the most famous photographs from the civil rights movement involve a fire hose. Birmingham. Public Safety Commissioner Bull Connor. He ordered the firefighters to turn high-pressure hoses on Black children and teens marching for civil rights. The force was powerful enough to knock people off their feet, throw them across the sidewalk, rip their clothing, slam bodies into walls. Those photographs traveled around the world. People saw exactly what was happening in America. And the people that were holding those hoses, they weren't police officers. They were firefighters. Now, that's the contradiction I keep coming back to. Because firefighters absolutely save lives. They absolutely deserve respect for the work that they do. But Black Americans have never had the luxury of just remembering one version of that uniform. We remember the rescues, but we also remember Birmingham. We remember the heroes. We also remember the departments that fought integration. And both things are true, right? Which is why those two stories caught my attention. Not because they felt new, but because they felt familiar. What those two bozos did was remind everybody that institutions don't become better because we decide they're better. People have to make them better, and that work never really ends. So history doesn't disappear. Fire departments have some of the best public trust numbers in this country, but history is still history. And every once in a while, somebody opens their mouth and says exactly what they're thinking and reminds everybody else that old habits die hard. Because if I show you a firefighter, most Americans will see a hero. If I show you Birmingham, most Black Americans will see something else too. And both memories belong to the same uniform.